is inscribed with the world's largest star chart. For several years, from the year AD 1078, the Bureau of Astronomy of the Song Dynasty Court systematically carried out observations of the heavens and made extensive records. During the Southern Song Dynasty, astronomers drew up a star chart based on those records and had it inscribed on the large stelae. The stone-carved star chart of Suzhou, on which appear no less than 1,431 stars, is the biggest and earliest star chart in the world, and it is so detailed that modern astronomers find it incredible. In the case of the position of 266 fixed stars, discrepancies in accuracy between what is recorded on the stelae and measurements made today using modern measuring standards are very small indeed. The on-the-spot approach to conducting research also promoted the design of calendars during the Song Dynasty. In the Tongtian calendar introduced in the Southern Song Dynasty, the discrepancy in the length of the year suffered by earlier calendars was reduced to just 22 seconds. This means it was every bit as accurate as the Gregorian calendar still used throughout the world today, yet the Tongtian calendar was devised 400 years earlier than the Gregorian calendar. Ancient Chinese followed the practical notion that astronomical observation should serve agriculture, and the most direct manifestation of this was seen in the continuous corrections made to calendars throughout the various dynasties. Early in the Northern Song Dynasty, a lunisolar calendar was introduced, but in it there was a discrepancy between the phases of the moon and the terms of the sun, and this often resulted in delays to important farming events. In order to establish the precise relationship between moon phases and solar terms, Shen Kuo proposed the idea of a calendar with 12 solar terms.
那这种历法可以说一改过去的传统，过去都是我们叫阴阳合历，就是把24节气和月亮的这个朔望月合在一起的。他认为这个东西比较复杂，所以说干脆就把朔望月的那一套东西给它撇开，自己完全做一个纯阳历这个东西。这同我们现在所用的公历的想法是可以说如出一辙的。
From the time of the introduction of the 12 solar term calendar in the Song Dynasty, agricultural production was kept in line with farming seasons. The Grand Canal had been built during the reign of Emperor Yang of the Sui dynasty several hundred years before, and by the time of the Song Dynasty, it had been developed into a golden waterway for goods being transported between North and South China. Paddy rice produced in South China was shipped northward to Bianliang City. During the Song Dynasty, a new type of canal lock was invented. It was not until 400 years later, in the year AD 1373, that a similar lock was invented in Europe.
在中世纪的欧洲，这个播种量和收获量的比是1:5到1:10，而在宋朝的时候，播种量和收获量之比是1:100，也就是说，宋代的粮食单产和粮食产量是欧洲的10倍甚至20倍。
Agriculture has always been the foundation of all human civilizations, and certainly the advanced state of the science and society of the Song Dynasty was to a great extent the result of the advanced level of the nation's agriculture. As the most prosperous city in the world of its time, Bianliang City had a population of 1.5 million. Not surprisingly, agricultural production was the national priority. Agriculture in the Song Dynasty was advanced, especially in South China, where rotational farming was already in operation. Early maturing and highly compatible paddy rice varieties also helped facilitate the efficient and full use of land. Farmland, originally not suitable for crops, was improved through fertilization to the point where it could sustain high-yield rice fields. Very often, 2 or even 3 harvests a year were possible. Modern experts in agriculture regard the Song Dynasty as a green revolution era in ancient Chinese agriculture.
In 宋朝的时候，中国的人口首次超过了1个亿，也就是说，宋朝的农业就已经养活了当时世界上最多的人口。
The four great inventions had initially an enormous influence on the development of Chinese civilization and later a far-ranging global impact. All four were invented prior to the Song Dynasty, but it was under Song that their full potential began to be realized.
Over the long period of the evolution of Chinese civilization, we can trace the lives of numerous great historical figures. Through their wisdom, intelligence, and remarkable achievements, the Chinese nation was able to stand proudly at the pinnacle of the science and technology of the ancient world. Among those geniuses were the Duke of Zhou, who observed the sun's shadows in front of the Ngomon. There was Lu Ban, who made scaling ladders for the state of Chu. There was the profound and brilliant philosopher Mo Tzu. There was Li Bing, who constructed the great water conservancy project known as the Dujiang Weirs. And then there was Zhang Heng, who invented the first seismograph and succeeded in locating the epicenters of earthquakes. There were also many skilled craftsmen such as Bi Sheng, who invented movable type printing. These greats of the ancient world laid the cultural and scientific foundations for the appearance of China's four great inventions during the Song Dynasty.
这个中国古代科技发展最重要的时代是在宋代，啊，古代所谓四大发明吧，纸是比较早的，那么这个印刷、罗盘，和火药，主要的应用阶段都是开始于宋代。
At an intersection of the Beijing-Hangzhou Grand Canal is the beautiful city of Zhenjiang. In order to commemorate the famous Chinese ancient scientist Shen Kuo, in 1985, the people of Zhenjiang rebuilt Dream Brook Garden, the place where Shen Kuo spent the last few years of his life. It was in this garden that Shen Kuo completed his famous work, Dream Pool Essays. According to Dr. Joseph Needham, who was well versed in the history of Chinese science and technology, the encyclopedia Dream Pool Essays is an extremely important landmark in the history of Chinese science and technology. In this work, recorded in great detail, are the scientific thoughts and technological breakthroughs of the Song Dynasty. Dr. Needham enthusiastically praised Shen Kuo as the most outstanding scientist in the history of Chinese science. Shen Kuo was indeed a genius. When he was made a military officer in Yan'an Shanxi province, he discovered the region had an abundance of petroleum. After carrying out a few experiments, he found that soot made from the smoke of burned petroleum could be used to make writing ink. He then concluded it would be an excellent substitute for pine soot and that using the substitute would reduce deforestation. He then ordered that his new writing ink made from the soot of burned petroleum be produced in batches, and he rightly predicted that petroleum would be used greatly in the future. But as well as that, Shen Kuo was the most direct participant in and chronicler of the four great inventions of ancient China. Originally, gunpowder was used as a kind of medicine to dispel plague and treat ringworm. Earlier in the Tang Dynasty, Taoist alchemists had discovered that when sulfur, saltpeter and charcoal were heated together, the result was a chemical reaction that caused fire. From then on, this medicine that could be set on fire was known in Chinese as Wo Yao, or fire medicine. It was during the Song Dynasty that people discovered how to harness the force generated by the discharge of burning gunpowder and invent the fire rocket, the predecessor of all modern rockets. According to ancient Chinese legends, the Yellow Emperor invented a device that was known as the south-pointing chariot, the instrument that gradually evolved into the modern compass. The earliest documentation concerning the compass can be traced back to before the Qin dynasty, well over 2,000 years ago. During the Han dynasty that followed, the famous philosopher Wang Chung recorded that when a piece of lodestone carved in the shape of a ladle was balanced on a round bronze plate, the handle of the ladle would point to the north entirely by itself. Before the Song dynasty, this compass, known as the South Pointer, was not particularly accurate. But while trying to improve the precision of the compass, Shen Kuo made a great discovery regarding the globe's magnetic declination angle. Although the compass had already been invented before the Song dynasty, it was not until the time of the Song dynasty that the earliest magnetic compass could be used for navigation. After the magnetic declination problem had been solved, the compass went on to be highly important for navigation at sea. With Shen Kuo's new improved compass, a large boat in the Song dynasty could travel much further, and over time, the compass invented by the ancient Chinese was exported and used in ships across the world. Several hundred years later, when the American continent was discovered, it was thanks to the compass. By that time, the compass, an invention of the Chinese, had written a truly magnificent page in the history of world civilization.
The adoption of the compass in navigation, of course, meant that ships were less likely to get lost at sea. Ultimately, it also made it possible for ships to travel further away from China. Well, it wasn't long before other countries were making use of compasses. Thank you for staying with us on today's New Frontiers, and join me again next time when we'll bring you more about the development of Chinese civilization and the Song dynasty. I'm Ji Xiaojun from CCTV International. Bye for now.